A Christian secularism. It sounds like a contradiction. But it all depends on how you define the secular. The most common way of understanding the secular is by thinking of it as that space where religion is gone, or that space where religion is going to die, or that space where people are out to get religion and want to get religion. And there was even a prediction that as, from the 17th century on, that as science would develop and modern thought would develop, that religion would just slowly but surely go away. Well, that prediction hasn't come true. And that's only one way to see the secular, as some kind of space absent of the religious. So when people refer to it like the secular society, and they get really mad at it, let's say especially those obviously who are identified with religion, I think they're thinking of that view. And when they say things like we're living in a post-secular society because now the religion seems to be making a comeback or seems to be on the resurgence again, they're referring to that particular definition. But that definition is wrong. That definition never happened. Religion never went away. Religion was here. It may have changed its shape and form, but it never went away. The second definition is privatization. So in other words, religion becomes private. So sure, it's still around, but let's just make sure we kind of marginalize it and put it to the side and not let it get involved in the public life. So if we discuss abortion, for example, in the public life and laws about abortion, you got to keep your religion bracketed. You got to keep it to the side. You can't bring it into the public sphere. And that's a little bit more complicated, but that also has not necessarily really come true. It really depends on the country. There has been some extreme levels of privatization in Western Europe, especially in France. In other countries, church attendance may be low, but churches are still very active in kind of the social network of society, like in Norway, like in Sweden, like in some, again, in the Scandinavian countries. In the United States, it's difficult to say whether religion is really private. I mean, to some extent, it depends on where you are in the United States. And also, it's really hard after something like the January 6th insurrection to really think that somehow religion is private and does have some kind of public role. So privatization, it's kind of to what degree? But most people would argue that religion needs to be privatized in order to have a thriving democracy, but that also has not shown to be true. There's plenty of examples of how religion has contributed to democracy. There's plenty of examples how religion still plays a public role in a thriving democracy, right? So it's not necessarily the case that religion has to be bracketed, put to the side, have a high wall of separation, as the Supreme Court said in the 1970s. That religion can have a public role, but the real challenge is how religion is going to support democratic structures. That's the real challenge. And the other, now third understanding of the secular, which I think is the one that still actually makes a lot of sense, the one that's sort of still in play, is this idea that somehow the political and cultural space is structured in such a way that there is a kind of separation of religion. A kind of separation, not marginalization, not bracketing, not high wall of separation, but religion is not, as Jeff Stout from Princeton University would say, religion no longer is what's called the all-encompassing reality. It's no longer that horizon that kind of frames how we understand everything. Society is made up of different spheres: economy, science, education, arts, etc. And at one time, religion covered all those and helped us to understand all those things in a kind of holistic way. What the secular space does is take religion and makes it one of those spheres amongst all the others. So that's in technical language, that's called the process of differentiation. Somehow all these other spheres become differentiated from religion as the all-encompassing reality. And religion is not negated. It's not necessarily, forced out. Yes, some people want to force it out, but it hasn't historically proven to be the case. So that's not what the secular is. It doesn't necessarily have to be privatized to the extreme that we see in France. That's like a little bit of an overreaction. But there has to be some separation to allow for democratic structures, especially democratic structures that support things like human rights, freedom of conscience, freedom of religion, freedom of the press. So that kind of separation, right, like church-state separation, that opens up a space of what I would call political pluralism. Political pluralism. Because in this political space that we live in, we have to recognize that we're living with people that don't believe what we believe. And that's different from the church. In the church, it would be impossible for us to enter into the church and to have people there on a consistent basis that would say, yeah, I'm a part of the Orthodox Church, but you know what? I don't really think Jesus is important. That doesn't make any sense, right? So there's a certain common faith when we come into the church. In a political world, we have to live and breathe and to function and to relate to people who don't believe what we believe. And that's what a political community is. We can talk about our faith, we can try to convince people of our faith, we can try to give our opinion about what we should do about abortion laws and other kinds of things, other kinds of controversial issues. But we have to recognize that we're one voice amongst many. That's what a pluralistic society is. A political kind of pluralism. And the secular, understand as this differentiation process, opened up that space of pluralism in an unprecedented way in human history. There's always been pluralism in history. I mean, like the empires, obviously the Roman Empire, the Ottoman Empire, the Byzantine Empire, they all had pluralism, but the pluralism in those empires, even the Byzantine one, was understood in such a way that if you weren't, if you didn't sort of follow the protocol, let's say, of that particular imperial structure, the Roman Empire, the Ottoman Empire, or the Byzantine Empire, you were considered second-class citizen. You didn't quite have the same privileges. In a secular political pluralistic space, what we're hoping for, what's really dreamed of, is a kind of pluralism where everybody is treated as equal. And we debate how that equality should look like, how it should be structured. And the church just has to, one of the challenges facing the church in the United States, here in Greece, where 95% of the people actually identify as Orthodox Christian, they really have to face the challenge of how is it that as an institution, we have this liturgical role in the church, in the Eucharist, but how, as institutions, as individual Orthodox Christians, should I be acting in this politically plural space? What should I be doing to promote it? What should I be doing to make sure that everyone is treated as free and unique, irreducibly unique individuals, as made in the image and likeness of God? What is my role here? And that role might be different, a little bit different than its role within sort of the official church space. Sometimes the church is going to have to accept that certain things can happen in this political space that it doesn't accept in its own space. Sometimes the church is going to have to accept that, for example, a simple example, the church doesn't allow women to be priests, but that doesn't mean the church should fight so that in the political space women should just stay home and not have jobs and not have their careers or not do other kinds of things in life. So in this political space, it can't impose that restriction. And we can come up with other examples as well, but the point is that in the political space, the church has to accept pluralism, has to promote it. Actually, theologically, it should promote it. It should promote it because it should affirm people as unique individuals made in the image and likeness of God. And sometimes that is going to mean that things are going to happen in that political space that the church doesn't agree with. I mean, that's the point, right? But that doesn't prevent the church from speaking about its faith, weighing in on certain issues, speaking about how it thinks about certain kinds of things. At the same time, it needs to do it with an eye towards making sure that its role is to promote a pluralism where everyone is treated relationally as irreducibly unique creatures made in the image and likeness of God. That is a Christian secularism that we should all support and approve.